In 2005, two Wisconsin brothers founded a silencer research and development company called Hearing Protection LLC. After escaping Hillary Clinton's dangerously mismanaged State Department security program, these brothers went full tilt into standing up their own firearms company. Today, still under the watchful eye of government regulatory agencies, they survive as entrepreneurs of fortune. If you have a problem, if you have shitty kit, and you're in desperate need of an upgrade, maybe you can buy Griffin Armament.
Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about the Optimus 6 suppressor and the history of Griffin Armament with additive manufacturing. And, Kade, go ahead and take that away.
Yeah, so I'm Kade. I work here at Griffin Armament. I would basically just have a few questions for you. What was the path to this company thinking about getting into 3D printing?
To introduce us to the path, I'd have to go back to like 04, 05. I went on a deployment to Iraq, and I brought a 16-inch SPR upper. I was a designated marksman for a platoon in Samara, and my rifle was built, 16-inch barrel with a Knight's free float RAS and a Leopold. It was like a 2-8 SPR at that time, but they later relabeled it a 3-9. And I had a NT4 flash hider on the end of the barrel, and on one of the days, I think the 5th group team there was training, and one of the guys was talking to me and mentioned that he, was a left-handed firer, and he really didn't like the QDSS can on the end of his gun and how it was blowing gas in his face. And I offered to trade him, for his use for the time he was deployed there, a PRI gas buster charging handle on an LMT SOT mod carrier. And he, appreciated it, and in return offered to trade me a QDSS can for the time he was there. And so I remember taking that can out, and so one of my first experiences with a professionally built suppressor, maybe the first, really. I remember taking the 108 gun, mounting the can, fired the first round, it rang my right ear, and that was a negative first impression. And it turned my shot group into like a little smiley face. I remember a couple of rounds going into the smile and 2 eyes, and it was like a 2.5 minute group. And in the moment, the weight, the combination of the weight, the fact the silencer was shifting back and forth, maybe like 20 degrees, something like that, and the accuracy loss and the ringing of the ear, I was sitting there thinking, is this even worth taking out? And part of me, my childhood I spent reading the McVie-Sog books and the Peter Sinek sniper books, and all the cool guys had silencers. So really it was for the grams before the grams. I mean, I like the idea of being able to shoot the rifle with less risk of permanently bad hearing damage. I'd had some significant hearing damage from a training incident where we were ordered not to wear earplugs. So I was familiar with what an M16 could do to your hearing in a few minutes of time, And it's interesting that Kade here is a former Marine, and also was issued the NT4, which is the model following. And Kade had some interesting experiences with his suppressors.
Yeah, we got issued the silencers, and they did what they were supposed to for the most part. We had guys go on the line. The sound was much quieter, much better for overall shooting ability. Definitely better for close quarters combat. If you ask me, you're not dealing with all the concussion. And then the tone as well is also one of those things that sounded really good about the silencer, but we ended up having an issue with some cap striking in my unit. And then we ended up having the latch get caught on some webbing and, bend that little C clip into an M. So
yeah, and he's talking about the redundancy latch that Joe Giudini designed. I never met Joe, but he mentioned that he designed that. And so Kade didn't have any love for the redundancy latch. No. I didn't like the thing either. It, when you're firing the can, it would drift, so it's up in a locked position, and as you're firing, it would fall and it would migrate around, and it would kind of distract you from firing because you're cognizant of the fact that that was your lock. Your gate stays down if that device doesn't come up to here. And so even, after a while you learn that gravity keeps it down here so long as you don't, like, say, fire the gun canted to the left. If you cant to the left, all bets could be off, and that redundancy latch could teeter down to where it's unlocked, and then at that point gas pressure is going to pop the latch and the thing's going to fly off.
Yeah.
But shoot it conventionally as you're trained, and it's a functional can. The NT4 model was a significant improvement. So I thought when he came back with this feedback of, oh, my unit really didn't like this can, and told me a story about the Marine ripping the redundancy latch off with a pack strap, I was like, wow, gosh, you Marines really can ruin anything. And it was kind of shocking to me to hear the negative feedback, because I just thought that the NT4 was a pretty solid item. But why are we talking about this? It's because I knew the lead engineer, Doug Olson, had designed that silencer. And in the early days, at one point, I reached out to him in 2008 while he was working at Wilson Combat, I believe. And he was gracious enough to talk to me at some length and help me, begin some thought processes that I may not have had, otherwise. He was talking about, thermal management of a suppressor and being transparent to the weapon, which is kind of a goal that we can see more prominently coming out to the forefront today. We at Griffin were working reduced back pressure for a lot of years before this reduced back pressure craze really hit. Obviously, our work was kind of slower because sound was a priority, and our emphasis was reducing ear sound at the time. Of course, to reduce ear sound, you're kind of reducing back pressure as well, to an extent. And I'm talking about Doug because during those conversations he mentioned he thought electron beam melting was the technology of the future of suppressors. And we're talking 2008. And so these 3D printers have been around a long, long time. I mean, I think the first 3D printers, may go back to like the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. So this stuff, additive manufacturing, has been really, really long in development. And, the people, and, some of that makes sense when you get, really, it's a nerd space. I say that as a person who's kind of like, I have more respect for the CNC people, the Bridgeport guys, the guys that, turn knobs and smack hammers and, have the sweat equity in manufacturing the way that it's been done for, the way that we won World War II and stuff like that. You go to the additive space, and a lot of the models and sales involve like some kind of, it's almost like subscriptions and software where, people are thinking of backhanded ways to make money, where maybe they get you into a machine for relatively affordable and the powder is jacked to the nines. And they're basically mining your facility, which is dishonest. Or the technology might be really incredibly expensive. It's like, I'm getting ahead of myself, honestly, because I want to say Kate had some other questions probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, to touch on what you initially said, with the silencer that you were issued, obviously looking cool is half the battle. So you gotta make sure that you look cool, and it's not necessarily about the rest of it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just an intrinsic motivation. Like in the military, I can tell you that I always liked this a firearm that was. I am completely incompatible with all the weapons being the same.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there.
Basic training, like foxhole cover. You've got 6 rifles that are identically configured M16A2s, except for buttstock numbers. And I'm the kind of guy who's going to pick up the wrong gun and butcher my qualification or something like that. And, as soon as I could get freedom to, the introduction of the SOP mod kit really brought that feeling of freedom to firearms in the military because now people could put a vertical grip on the gun if they wanted to, or change a panel configuration, or put an optic, or change position with light, and their gun became recognizably their own. And that's important, to a combat environment. You want to be able to grab you might be on QRF and they're all staged, your gear and your rifles, and you want your rifle to be the rifle you grab. You don't want to grab a rifle with somebody else's zero. So to that extent, total uniformity with firearms is stupid.
I get you. In the Marine Corps, we got rid of that because every Marine just kept their rifle on them. You go to the bathroom, rifle's on you. If you're eating, rifle is on you.
Yeah, I know Kade doesn't like the stock on the HK gun, no. and the Marine Corps they frowned upon heavily the use of a stock. I mean, which is funny because I think they don't in other areas. So like if you were in Force Recon or something, I think those guys use Magpul or whatever they want.
Yeah, they can use pretty much whatever they want. Recon, they're using whatever they have and what they want to use, for sure. They can personalize their guns a lot more.
Sure. So at any rate, a little bit of non-uniformity is good for every fighting rifle.
Yeah, every shooter is different too. Like not everyone's gonna have the grip in the same place. Not everybody's gonna have the same zero. You could pick somebody else's gun up and then have a totally whack zero because your gun,
right? Which goes to my point of don't make the guns look the same, because the zeros they shouldn't be different if all the guys shoot perfectly, right? But you're in the military, and this guy might be jerking the heck out of his trigger, and you might be shooting perfectly, and that means you have 2 different zeros.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
And they can be pretty different.
Oh yeah, that most definitely. Oh yeah. When did you first use printing in Griffin Armament silencers? Like, how did you get about doing that?
That same year that Doug had mentioned that, and I can't, honestly, probably I was probably thinking about it at that point. We had developed an M4 SD suppressor, which was a screw together suppressor of 17.4 and carbon steel that worked well enough, but not as well as we'd like it to, as far as ultimate sound reduction and stuff like that. And we wanted to develop the next generation of suppressor, and we decided to print 9 different cores, and the best of those cores was selected as the M4SD2 prototype, and essentially that became the basis for manufacturing the tools and parts that allowed us to make the M4SD2 and bring it to market around 2011.
Nice. So currently with this Optimus 6 model, what was your goal with what were you trying to fix within the market? What were you trying to address?
With the Optimus 6, I was really just trying to bring the first Griffin printed suppressor. Honestly, the problem I was trying to solve was machine application for Griffin Armament. I wanted to figure out which process and machine to use for production going forward. And so for 9 months, I've been kind of very distracted and working on, it's like these machines are phenomenally expensive. It's not like a CNC machine where you buy one and it's $200,000, and if you don't like it, you can resell it for a good portion of its money. In this space, the machines are phenomenally expensive. I would say overvalued, to be quite honest. And when they sell used, people lose a fortune. So a machine that was $1.4 million might go for $350,000 at auction. So you really don't want to screw up your application in additive manufacturing. And I was talking to, I talked to Velo 3D through Go Engineer reps, and they had some approachable DMLS machines that weren't very productive. And we talked to HP Additive, and they had a method that could really lay down some material, but also had some unique attributes. I'll leave it at that because I have an NDA with those guys. And I talked to GE Equilibrium Additive people, and they're an interesting mix of technologies. They have the EBM method. What I didn't like about EBM was resolution's not as hot as DMLS or other additive technologies. And the EBM also requires the use of a helium gas. And something about helium, it's like, I think we have to mine it on the planet. We can't actually generate it. I might be wrong, but I've heard that we have to mine helium. And they recently found a reserve of helium in the Earth's core or crust, whatever, where they're able to say that we've dramatically increased the amount of helium we have on the planet. But the concept of using a gas, helium, that is rare and fluctuates with a volatility and pricing in the process was a not desirable attribute of the Equilibrium EBM machine. The Equilibrium guys also have SLM machines, the selective laser melting, where the powder bed, a spreader, and a laser that puts down layers. But their machines are, I want to say they have, I feel like they might have single laser machines or maybe double laser machines. So the not the fastest machines, they also have a technology, binder jet, and they've got something like a $4.3 million machine, their Series 3 machine, because the Series 2 is more of like a no longer being developed, I want to say, machine. The Series 3 machine is more of like a monster for automotive applications. And, we talked to EOS, and EOS is the market leading provider of DMLS machines, I want to say. And they're a German machine. But ultimately, we talked to Renishaw in 2022 before this entire workup. And at the time at IMTS, we got a quote and we felt they were too expensive. And, back to the drawing board, 2 years we were kind of saving money, knowing that all these additive options are really expensive. And ultimately we circled back to Renishaw, bought a pair of Ren-M 500Q Ultra machines. They're getting delivered June 30th. So that's the piece of machine application that is ultimately why the Optimus 6 exists. And the technology we used for the Optimus 6 allowed 0-degree overhangs to be manufactured, whereas the DMLS SLM machines struggle with printing angles. And so I want to say the Renishaw machines, the recommendation is 45 degrees. I think they might be sort of advancing the state of software technology for that, and they might be getting down to 30. I think they can print at 0 degrees for possibly up to under a millimeter of overhang. So it's like the SLM method. A unique attribute of additive in general is that all these methods have their own unique process advantages and limitations. So ultimately, one of the major advantages of additive would be the ability to perhaps use a material that is hard to machine a component out of, and that's something that the Ren-M 500Q machine is which is built in the United Kingdom. I think Wales is where they're built. Can do. But the performance objectives were obviously create a silencer that can do something performance wise that we can't do with conventional suppressors. And that goes to a place where we were working with a contract manufacturer to make the suppressors here, to make the cores that we ultimately machine and laser weld to the mounting systems. And something that made me really uncomfortable about that, the concept of taking my technology and delivering it to a third party, it seems like a kind of stupid thing to do.
Yeah, with like intellectual property theft, that being a real thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously your ideas can be interpreted through using your item and looking at your item, and so also development cycles. There's something native about when you own a piece of equipment and want to do development with it. It's at your fingertips. You can put something in there. You can make the part and try it out, and it feels like it's free, even if it has a phenomenal cost. Whereas when you farm something to a subcontract manufacturer, you see a real cost with the item,
right?
And you're doing that delivery thing, as well as those iteration cycles are further apart,
right?
Because if a process takes 2 days or something to make the part, you might be getting it at the speed of sending your thing, waiting for their production capacity to allow it to be manufactured. They get it in, then 2 days later they have it out. Then maybe they're doing post-process work to it for a couple of days. They send it to you, and ultimately, we were seeing cycles on this can, with four different prototypes was all the scope of what we did, in 2 batches of prototypes. And they were, I want to say it was like 2 months, 2 months of fucking around to make ultimately one model of suppressor.
Right.
And we started with a 1.5 inch diameter suppressor, and our initial design worked really great. But it was nearly impossible to depowder. And then we kicked we kicked the design of the 1.5 that got the depowdering improved. So it's like you're told in additive that you have this flexibility, but you run into these hurdles that take your flexibility away. So the 1.5 performance was gutted on the easily depowderable version. And I kind of anticipated that and kicked these 173 cores out at the same time with a pair of different flash hiders. And one of these came back and was honestly a really performing suppressor that I was really happy with and excited with before we put it on a meter, because it just sounded great inside, and had good flash performance characteristics and was low back pressure, in my interpretation of a can being low back pressure. But when we put it on the meter, the numbers weren't as nice as I'd like to see them for peak numbers. The unweighted numbers were and A-weighted numbers were very tightly grouped, which was nice for the design. And we were looking for what the heck is the reason why the can sounds so good. And by that I mean, in all the 556 suppressors I've used in my entire 20 years in industry here, this is the most performing 556 can that I've used. Now, I haven't used all of the printed cans on the market by any means. We did have a guy at a recent event. I don't know if it was I think Quiet in the Capitol.
Oh yeah.
A customer on a forum said, hey, I went to this event and the 2 cans that impressed me were this and the AAC printed can that they just brought out, whatever it's called.
I don't know off the top of my
I
head.
mean, it might be RDB or something like that. But at any rate, the thing we found was that LEQ and LEAQ were like 5 decibels below the other suppressors we were testing, which is the average sound over time. So obviously the peak's very short, and a lot of the body of the sound happening is lower with the suppressor.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that comparatively to other flow through models that I've experienced shooting next to, and especially name the range, the sound performance that this is providing versus that is definitely up there. We are experiencing low back pressure, first of all, and second of all, we're not getting that ear ring that most other flow throughs are giving off.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy that it wasn't, a loud sounding suppressor, because a lot of the flow through cans are.
Yes.
We chose in the release content to compare to a pair of relevant flow through cans, the CRS PRT and the RC3. Not because I'm not going to say this is in the exact same class, because it isn't made of a crazy alloy and doesn't have, it's like one of those was developed on a government research grant, and the other one was developed by a defense contractor that, of course, has the SOCOM contract,
Right.
Surefire.
Right.
And so both of them have, they're essentially built in design terminology of liquid money, whereas our can was not developed on any type of similar scope of development program. But when viewing these things under thermal and night vision, they look very similar. And when we put them on the high-speed camera to do our flash testing, our can by a minor margin was losing to the two others. And there's a lot of people that have said negative things about the RC3 and that it's a joke and different things. But one of the things that people don't understand about the flow-through space is that, especially as it pertains to the Surefire can, which is doing the flow-through thing pretty phenomenally, as far as, the very low cycle increase.
Right.
That can has a very calculated and tuned amount of, performance that is entirely associated with one mount, the 4-prong flash hider that we used in our test here.
Okay.
And so the 4-prong flash hider, when you swap that to a muzzle brake, the can pukes fireballs, and it's like, so what? The one thing I will say is that we did not design this can around a flash hider mount, and I think it performs better with like a single port brake. But we did run it on a 225 flash hider for the testing, because we didn't want to, run 2 cans on flash hiders and run our can on something else, because that's kind of shady. I would say about sound, under ear protection, the RC3 is the better sounding of the CRS and the RC3.
Okay.
Take the ear protection off, both of them ring your ears. Shoot this can, and it outperforms both of them in sound handily, and it just and it doesn't ring ears, and that's kind of a cool, place to be. I mean, obviously, we're making products for consumers, law enforcement, predominantly, and for those people, the sound performance is going to be more important to their satisfaction.
Right. With the launch of the silencer, what is your recommendation for a muzzle device? Do you have a preference, or do you think one's better than others?
I personally would run a short break, or a tac comp, the device with little holes in it.
Yeah.
Because it would better protect the baffling from wear. My preference is I'm going to run the gun with a can, because I like silencers, and unlike those stories that I was telling about the original thing, it's like if you got a can that does bring the ear noise down to where you're not ringing your ears if you shoot it, and if your POI shift is negligible, and if your grip dispersion is actually improved, which is kind of more the space of what these silencers do, then why not run the silencer?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. I actually do prefer a 2-port brake or a single port brake on any of my rifles that I will run a silencer on, to get that wear resistance as well. We're spending money on these.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's funny when you hear these negative comments about, oh, that silencer had a little bit of flash on the short barrel rifle. It's like, when's the last time you looked at what a flash hider looked like on a short barrel rifle? Because those can be quite flashy as well.
Right.
I want to say I fired a couple rounds with the 3-prong QC mount after we'd done a study on the flash hider, where we were punching bores open to see what effect that had to do with performance. And so I was shooting one of our flash hiders, 225, bored 300 thou, and I think the Knight's QC was like 290, and I only grabbed it because I was like, what the fuck does this thing flash like? Because my 300 thou thing had like a, I don't know, on an 11.5, like a flash signature that I want to say, these things can be exaggerable in your head when you look at things, because at this point we'd stopped running the camera. But it was a flash like this long, maybe that big in diameter, and it was a dull red color. I flipped over to the QC mount, and it was like a yellow flash of a similar or greater size. And it was like, well, there you go. There's fucking 2 good flash hiders producing similar size flashes on 11.5 guns, with M193 ammunition, which is what we used in our test of the silencers. M193 doesn't have flash retardants. Pretty bright stuff.
Oh yeah, those shorter barrels are definitely just destined to have some sort of flash.
I can tell you that all 3 cans in this test had lower flash with the silencers attached than without the silencers attached.
Yeah.
So that makes it has flash and oh wow, that RC3 is junk into bullshit statements, in my opinion.
Right. No, I understand.
Because those flashes with the muzzle devices are much worse than the silencers at that point.
Right. And honestly, you're just looking for the signature mitigation. You're looking for the low back pressure.
I think a lot of people, when they reference these things, this is a 16-inch user with a flash hider comparing what he saw on a short gun to a 16-inch gun. And it's like, that's not fair. It's not a fair comparison.
No, it's not. Yeah, there's a lot of variables that make that case.
Powder is half burned, powder is fully burned.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly. You wanna get that full powder burn.
Yeah. You want to get the full powder burn before you introduce it to the A2. And then the A2 really shines.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Like that little blue flame that you can barely see from 7 feet on the A2 20-inch.
Oh yeah. Just a little meep.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more accurate. It's higher velocity. It's lower flash.
Oh yeah.
Superior? Well, not when you're walking around through a doorway.
No. But definitely superior at range.
Sure. But I mean, I don't want to come across as unenthusiastic. The silencer is really nice. The people that used them have really liked them. One of the first departments that was demoed the silencer made a unit purchase. This is a pretty performing silencer, but it's just the first. And hopefully the best is yet to come.
Oh yeah. And these are coming in a 6mm bore.
Oh yeah, that's another thing we didn't say. Apples to oranges. This is a 6mm bore, where the other 2 cans had dedicated 5.6 bores in this test. And why we do that? It seemed like a market thing to do for the consumer market, to have a slightly larger bore and call it a 6mm suppressor.
Right. I know that some people are running 6mm arc or 6 PRC when it comes to bolt guns.
Yeah, one of the guys we just had on, Jay Pedro, had mentioned that 6mm arc is gained a lot of popularity with special mission units or something like that, and that was news to me. I haven't really, I'm one of those. I'm an old fashioned guy where, 308, 5.56,
308 is king.
45 caliber Thompson.
For sure.
That's all you need.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of the guys running bolt guns on the range. They're going towards the 6mm arc if they decide to go that route when it comes to building out their new precision guns. I don't know why personally, but I've seen it gain some popularity and some traction.
The 6 arc is an interesting animal because it feeds from a 223 length magazine. I want to say small frame AR-15 platform, different bolt face, different barrel. Around that can compete ballistically with 6.5 Creedmoor, I want to say. And the only negative is, wow, look at the thin web on those bolt lugs, And we're kind of asking platforms to do things that aren't healthy, and the bolt life can be pretty severely short. I want to say like 1,000, 2,000 rounds or something like that is what I've heard. Yeah, and that's where I have, it would give me pause.
Oh yeah, and then you look at the 308 and you're like, man, it just outshoots that by thousands of rounds.
Around 10,000 rounds.
Yeah, getting that longevity.
Right. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Anyway, this also in comparison, $960 to $1,800. It's like there's a lot of ways these silencers are different, but they're kind of low back pressure products, and it's interesting to put something together and show a couple different data points for people to understand and frame a performance, comparison.
For sure. I definitely like the fact that we're offering a couple of different mounting options, taper mount being our longest standing and dual lock being our most durable, but also giving consumers the option with the hub mounted option as well.
Yeah, that's was nice. Actually, we've seen more market response and sales. It's like we've pre-sold more than 1/3 of 1375 here on the Optimus 6, which unusual data point for us. We have historically done better with built-in mount. I mean, I'm a built-in mount guy. I'm a built-in muzzle device, built-in muzzle cap guy, because let's remember what Doug said about the thermal pathway thing. Let's make the silencer cool. When the cap's attached, it's helping the silencer cool. When the cap's screwed in, it's got a retarded thermal pathway, and you've lost some of your surface area.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a market out there where individuals are moving towards a more compatible model that they can swap the mounts on, as far as what I've noticed, and like they can kind of get a feel for what they want when it comes to picking their mounting system, or maybe they already have one that they like.
Yeah, I one more thing. I really liked the taper mount system until the dual lock thing existed, and dual lock, it was just the new shiny thing, and I mean, it kind of won everybody over here.
It won me. I'm a dual lock guy.
I like there's something nice about having a lock, even if you didn't need it.
100%.
The Acme thread doesn't need a thread protector.
Yeah, super durable, very, very capable.
Yeah, I wanted to mention we also have already developed a Optimus 7, so the 308 version will soon exist, and it also was a very low back pressure suppressor, picked up a 308 large frame gas gun and ejecting cases to the rear. Really excellent sound performance on a 16-inch barrel, like 137 and 136 or something like that for the three locations.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be beneficial as well on the 308 gas guns, because I know a lot of 308 gas guns actually come with adjustable gas blocks and stuff like that to tune the gun.
On the adjustable gas block front, we finally got development time to prototype our block on the micro wave patents we bought. The if anybody'd heard of the governor gas block with the sliding plate that had the ports in it, so detented sliding plate. We've got a block coming on the patents soon, and was able to test the prototype, and that was really neat. The 2-position, one click, you're shooting unsuppressed with proper gas, and 1 click suppressed with proper gas, and wow, did the sound phenomenally change. Stupidly impressive.
That's really cool.
And I don't play with adjustable gas because it's, for me, having 16 positions with a lot of these systems, and having to that's not like tactical, which is kind of like where my background and emphasis is. If I can't put it in suppressed, put it in unsuppressed, like a SCAR or something like that, or a HK416, then I don't really want to fuck around with it.
No, for sure. There's definitely that side of the industry where they want to tune their guns, to the most tuned option you could have. But then there's people like you and me that are like, if it runs, it runs. And we'll accept that.
And we want to give me 2 choices, and I can only be wrong 50% of the time.
Yes.
At worst case scenario, but give me 16 choices and I can be all over the place. And it's like some of these products, I will say that I'll put a plug out for Rifle Speed. I think that numbering the positions at least, allows a person with memory to achieve a tune in 2 different places. But for me, the 2-position is really slick.
Oh yeah, for sure. They definitely make a great gas block. I think that they have a pretty solid design on that. But yes, me as well. I'm the 2-position guy. I want something to function unsuppressed, and I want something to function suppressed.
Yeah, and the only place that gets confusing is if we applied our design to a 300 blackout, you'd have to be using the unsuppressed setting for subsonic and the suppressed setting for supersonic. But the blackout's a weird animal anyway, where
the pressure
it's horrifically overgassed in supersonic, and so that the subsonic can function with the suppressor.
Yeah.
And so you've got loud ear noise, so you really need that suppressed setting for the supersonic cartridge of the 300 blackout to make it an enjoyable user experience, probably.
Right. No, that's for sure.
But anyway, that's the discussion on a wrap on the Optimus 6, and we appreciate you guys listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.